Here on The Colour of Country Life, good to be speaking with Paul Matheson. He's the Liberal candidate for the seat of Mildura at the November state election. How are you, Paul?
I'm good, thank you.
Now, you are a local resident of Mildura yourself. What's your connection with the community there?
I've lived up in Mildura for well over 10 years now, so I'm a local police officer actually. So I've been involved in community sport up here and also some farming enterprises. So I've got a bit of a connection and love living in the area.
Now, I know you want to appeal to everyone, but tell us your community sport connection. You got a team you're involved in?
I'm actually the president of Sunraysia Football Netball League. So,
oh, right. Yep.
So I was involved with all the clubs. So, yeah, we're pretty lucky that we've got a strong league up here and very community orientated, good participation rates and heaps of really, really good volunteers.
Well, actually, just on that front, you know, that's a good illustration, I guess, of how we've had to manage things during the pandemic. It's been a pretty tricky couple of years for the league, and that probably illustrates how up in Mildura, despite very low number of cases and high vaccination rates, you've had to juggle things in the local community.
Oh, most definitely. I suppose the resilience is what shows through for the country and regional people, and for us it was even worse. As you mentioned, you know, we had a very low number of cases. I think the most we had was 3 or 4 for the entire football and netball season last year, but we're in lockdown. And what makes it even worse, being on the border of New South Wales and close to South Australia, you can have different rules and regulations 3 minutes away.
Yeah, we talked about this often during the sports coverage because at times it looked like the league had to sort of look at possibly playing games in New South Wales because there was a different arrangement, even though they're a couple of k's away from other clubs.
Yeah, we did actually. It was absolutely ridiculous that we upped and moved our competition into New South Wales, so it was great that those clubs got behind us. And we could go over there and play community sport, and we had huge crowds. So it was unique, but we made it work. And hats off to all the volunteers and the players and the families and even the sponsors. You know, it's been a tough couple of years, and people don't realise how far the reach is, not only into lounge rooms for the sport on television, but those businesses really heavily rely on our competition, but also. What you touched on too, it's been tough. The mental health impacts of this has been devastating for country people.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think I understand the opposition policy correctly. There won't be any further lockdowns in regional Victoria, or no lockdowns statewide at all under pandemic management again.
Yeah, that's correct. So no more lockdowns, and keeping kids at school is probably the key as well. And ending the vaccination mandates. It entirely should come back on the person whether they want to be vaccinated or not. Trying to get people back into work. You know, we're struggling across heaps of different industries, and health is no different.
Now, this is going to get pretty pointy as we get closer to November in terms of the contest between yourself, Ali Cupper, the independent. You've got a Nationals candidate as well from Swan Hill. Do you feel that Mildura electorate has been well represented during the pandemic, particularly when it came to emergency powers?
No, I don't think so. I think our local members are quite passionate. But if you have a look at what's been enforced upon us by the Labor government and Andrews' government, is that I don't think we've really kicked up too much of a fuss. And that's probably across most of the regional and country areas. Like, to have Melbourne-centric policies and stuff imposed on us, it's been ridiculous. And I just think it was an easy fix to lock us all down, and it's something that I don't think we were represented that well across government and state and federal government, to be honest.
Now, something that Ali Cupper has gone on about for some time, but you've really tried to sort of land an early blow on this one, is the Mildura Hospital and its future. Just outline for us the Liberal Party made this announcement, particularly about this new funding for a Mildura Hospital.
Yeah, most definitely. So we looked at it. We're very big on infrastructure builds and getting jobs back into the community while understanding health is probably the most important issue that we have. So how it looks is, Sunraysia, Mildura, we need a new hospital. So we've committed to $750 million to build a new hospital, which would encompass a learning facility, because we've identified that how do we keep our kids local, and that's through tertiary education and having opportunities for them to stay in town, but also to increase the job opportunities for people that move to town. Like, we have a shortage of teachers, nurses, doctors, so how can we actually have the facilities, to entice them here and to keep them here, which leads into other infrastructure builds, schools and stuff like that. But The key for us is, we need a facility in north of Victoria that doesn't just cover Mildura or Sunraysia, but it can cover the Riverland, south, below Ganawara Shires. So there's a reason why we want this, and that's so people don't have to drive to South Australia or Melbourne to seek specialist help.
When it comes to healthcare in the Wimmera, the Mallee, the Mildura area, when it happens in Parliament, the government, Labor government, is always quick to remind people about the Liberal Party's record in coalition regarding the hospital. What do you have to say about, I guess, the history when it comes to the privatisation or the private management of the hospital in the past?
Well, it's exactly that. It's in the past. Well, we're talking like over 23 years ago, so that's a long time ago. So I think in general, everyone's got to move on. So what we have to do is acknowledge where the shortfalls are now, and that's fixing the health crisis. And to do that, we need the infrastructure and the government backing to do it. So we can't dwell on the past. Let's move forward and be positive. Now, if we hadn't been positive, we wouldn't have been in this situation coming out of the pandemic as we have.
And one of the other chestnuts, I guess, that keeps coming up is this one about public transport in the region and the reinstatement of rail services to Mildura. Has the Liberal Party got a policy position on that for the electorate of Mildura?
Not at this stage, not on passenger rail. I think we need to fix the infrastructure that we have. So we're very big on our commitment to the Murray Basin Rail. That needs to be completed. There's a couple of stages that haven't. And the hold-up to that is actually in the Ballarat area. So the issue there is state government not playing ball and the wasted funds. So if you fix that, there's scope to return rail to different areas in Victoria. Now, I think that you'll find most rail across Australia is subsidised by government. So we need to look at ways to work through it. But in the interim, let's fix what we've been promised and see how we go.
Just lastly, people might not realise that in a contest like this one, you will be running against a Nationals candidate in the form of Jade Benham, who's the Mayor of Swan Hill. I guess just explain for people why, like in other seats, you don't see a Liberal and National usually running against each other. There's
a coalition agreement. You can't run against a sitting member. So we haven't had the opportunity for quite some years to actually to run. We had Peter Crisp, who was knocked off by Ali Cupper. So now we could get a three-cornered affair where you get a choice, which I think is great. Some of our values align and some of them don't. So here's an opportunity to vote in a local person and talk to us about local issues. What it does mean is that we've got a direct link into Melbourne if we're successful in decision-making and policy.
Well, Paul Matheson, Liberal candidate for Mildura. Great to catch you over the next 5 months. Plenty to tease apart for the local voters. Thanks for joining us today on Flow.
No, I appreciate your time.